Director John Guidi is about to call for the transmittal of stored pre-launch commands, as Columbia is less than 9 minutes away from beginning a 2.5-week mission of life and microgravity experiments, taking full scientific advantage of the effects of microgravity in space.
TLT-OTC, configure fuel cell essential bus source switches.
Inward.
Pilot Kevin Kriegel is now flipping switches in the cockpit to directly connect the 3 fuel cells to the essential power buses. Coming up next will be the orbiter access arm being retracted away from the vehicle. This is the walkway used by the crew to gain entry into and out of the vehicle, and it can be returned to position within seconds if need be. And we see first motion of the OAA retract, which is beginning at this point.
MS2OTC, panel 019, TV power switch on.
Understood, that's complete.
T-minus 7 minutes and counting.
JRPS OTC, start APU and hydraulic script chart recorder.
JRPS copies and verifies.
TLT OTC, perform APU pre-start.
Didn't work.
Orbiter test conductor Roberto Ryrick has given pilot Kevin Kriegel the go-ahead to perform the auxiliary power unit pre-start procedure. The pilot is setting the switches in the cockpit to the ready-to-start configuration at this time.
OTC, PLT, APU, pre-start's complete, 3 gray talkbacks.
The next event will be the activation of the APUs that will come up in just about 20 seconds.
Lessons go for orbiter APU.
And we have a go for auxiliary power unit start.
Perform APU start.
PLT in work.
CDR OTC, reconfigure heaters.
The launch team has terminated liquid oxygen replenish to the external tank, and the team is now initiating LOX drain back.
APU start complete, 3 in the high grade.
Copy that, thank you.
Pilot Kevin Kriegel has reported that the APU activation is complete. The main fuel valve heaters on the 3 shuttle main engines have been turned on in preparation for launch. Final purge sequences of the main engines is now underway. T-minus 4 minutes and counting.
Lessons go for purge sequence performed.
A final test of the flight control surfaces is now being conducted. This is a program pattern of movements designed to verify the readiness for launch of the engines and other flight control surfaces. And final aero surface checks of the orbiter's aero surfaces are being completed. This is verifying the orbiter's hydraulic systems. And the main engines are being gibbled for a final test before launch. T-minus 3 minutes and counting. And all is going well for today's launch. This mission carries a crew of 7, and in the payload bay rests the Life and Microgravity Space Lab. And final pressurization of the liquid oxygen tank located inside the external tank is underway.
CLT OTC, clear caution warning memory, verify no unexpected errors.
Fin works.
And the gaseous oxygen vent hood is slowly being retracted away from the top of the external tank. Inside this tank is about 500,000 gallons of super cold liquid fuels that run the orbiter's 3 main engines.
Flight crew, OTC, close and lock your visors and initiate O2 flow. Have a great flight and have more fun than a barrel of monkeys.
Thanks a lot, Roberta. We got the visors down to pseudo 2 on, and we are going to have a good one.
Yeah, let's go for ET, LH2 pressurization.
Launch operations continue on schedule. Today is the Space Shuttle Columbia. Soon will begin its 17-day international mission to conduct life and material science experiments in space. T-minus 90 seconds and counting. T-minus 1 minute, 15 seconds. T-minus 1 minute and counting. Everything is still looking good for the launch of Columbia from Kennedy Space Center this morning. This will be an on-time launch at 10:49 a.m. Eastern Time.
Yeah, let's go for auto sequence.
And we have a go for auto sequence start. Columbia's onboard computers have primary control of all the vehicle's critical functions. 20. T-minus 20 seconds. T-minus 15. 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a go for main engine start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we have liftoff of the Space Shuttle Columbia on the International Flight Center Microgravity
Columbia completes the roll and places the shuttle in a head-down, range-level position for the 8.5-minute ride of order. 23 seconds into the flight, Columbia's 3 liquid fuel main engines will soon begin to throttle back in a 3-step fashion to 67% of rated performance. That will dampen the stress on the shuttle's aero surfaces as it breaks through the sound barrier. 45 seconds into the flight, Columbia will be traveling at 711 miles per hour, 2.5 miles downwind from Kennedy Space Center. 3 engines operating to rev up to full throttle, 104% rated performance. The main engines, along with Columbia's 3 fuel cells, and 3 automatic power ratings all functioning normally. deck, Mission Specialist Chuck Brady, along with payload specialists Jean-Jacques Favier and Bob Thirst. 1 minute 45 seconds into the flight. Columbia traveling at 2,400 miles per hour, more than 18 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, 22 miles in altitude, all systems functioning normally. Booster officer here in Mission Control standing by for solid rocket booster shutdown and separation about 5 seconds from now. Booster officer confirms a normal solid rocket booster separation, standing by for the performance call.
Columbia, performance nominal.
Nominal performance.
Columbia's onboard computers now converging in the proper guidance and trajectory to steer Columbia towards the proper keyhole in space for main engine cutoff. Everything going well so far in the first 2.5 minutes of Columbia's 20th voyage.
Columbia, 2-engine Ben Guerir.
2-engine Ben Guerir.
That call from spacecraft communicator Blaine Hammond indicating that if one main engine should fail, Columbia still could make a transoceanic abort to Ben Guerir, Morocco. However, all three main engines continue to track right down the pike. Three minutes, 5 seconds into the flight, Columbia traveling at 3,600 miles an hour, more than 79 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, more than 50 miles in altitude. About 40 seconds from now, Columbia will be coming up on the point of negative return, where the shuttle will be too far downrange and too high in altitude to return to the launch site in the event of an engine failure. However, all three main engines continue to function normally. Less than 5 minutes of powered flight remaining. Columbia 131 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, traveling at a speed of 4,700 miles an hour.
Columbia, negative return.
Negative return, Houston.
Columbia's three liquid fuel main engines draining 0.5 ton of fuel per second from its external fuel tank. The hydraulic power units and power-producing fuel cells all functioning normally so far for Columbia. Four and a half minutes into the flight, halfway through powered flight, Columbia traveling at 5,600 miles per hour, now some 67 miles in altitude, almost 200 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center. Everything proceeding normally so far in the early minutes of the 5th shuttle mission of the year. Columbia arcing out in a northeasterly trajectory, 39 degrees inclined to either side of the equator for the start of 16 or 17 days of microgravity science. More than 5 minutes into the flight, everything going well so far. Columbia 245 miles downrange, 70 miles in altitude, traveling at 6,700 miles per hour.
Columbia, press to ATO.
Press to ATO.
Columbia, single engine ops 3, 109.
Single engine ops 3, 109.
Columbia, press to MECO.
Press to MECO.
That call from spacecraft communicator Blaine Hammond indicating that at the 6-minute mark into the flight, should one engine fail, Columbia could still make normal cutoff targets for main engine cutoff to begin its mission. However, all three main engines continue to track normally. Columbia traveling at 8,500 miles an hour, 360 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center.
Single engine Ben Guerir, 104.
Copy that, Houston.
That call now indicating that if two main engines should fail, a transoceanic abort is still possible to Ben Guerir, Morocco. However, all three main engines, as well as the auxiliary power units and three fuel cells, functioning by the book this morning. 2 minutes to go in powered flight. Columbia and its 7 astronauts en route to begin their mission. All systems aboard the orbiter in good shape. Indicating that if 2 engines should fail, normal cutoff targets for main engine cutoff could still be achieved through the singular power of a remaining main engine. However, all 3 main engines continue to function in good shape. 7.5 minutes into the flight, Columbia's main engines soon will be throttled down once again to limit the stress on the shuttle and its 7 astronauts to that of 3 times the effective gravity. Columbia currently traveling at a speed of more than 4 miles a second. Columbia currently 70 miles in altitude, traveling at more than 14,000 miles an hour, 704 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center. 8 minutes into the flight, standing by for main engine cutoff. That call will come from the booster officer here in Mission Control. Booster officer reports a normal main engine cutoff. Standing by for external tank separation, which has been initiated.
Columbia, Houston, nominal MECO. Ohms 1 not required. You have a go for the ET photo DTO.
That's in progress.
Mission specialist Rick Linehan will now break out a camera to photograph Columbia's external tank as it drops away. That external tank will re-enter the Earth's atmosphere soon and burn up over the Indian Ocean. A normal climb to orbit this morning for Columbia to begin the 78th mission in shuttle program history, the 20th for Columbia.